So yeah, when I was studying computer science at university, the language of choice through which all the concepts were taught was, of course, Java. And at the time was Java 7 was the most popular version, I want to say. Can't remember. Uh, so yeah, all the things like algorithms and classes and well, object-oriented programming was, of course, the main paradigm by which we learned how to design software. Then, yeah, my first job out of university was actually as a PHP developer, although that didn't last long. But then for many years, I was a Java developer at a few different companies. And at this point, I always kind of just took it for granted that code bases uh, were just hard to comprehend, were just always going to be difficult to read. And that was that, whether I was a junior. I mean, even talking with senior architects at some of these companies, they really struggled to when we paired together to go through something, they've really struggled to comprehend sometimes what the code was doing, even if, they've been there like, 10, 15 years, they struggled. So I always just took it for granted that, source code was immensely difficult to comprehend, and that was how the industry was. Then I moved to another company. They hired me on because of my Java knowledge, but they use Scala at this company, and they saw that as a Java developer, I could learn Scala quite easily. And so, yeah, I did some online courses, books. I paired with one of the other programmers there, and I picked up Scala quite quickly. And uh, because thanks to Scala being a strong statically typed language, I found it far easier to comprehend the code. I It was quite astounding to me how much more I could comprehend just by a quick glance at some code, just by the types, the functions, and particularly well because Scala doesn't enforce, but it promotes a functional programming paradigm as opposed to object-oriented programming paradigm. While you can still use Scala like that, more like I would call it Java plus. Scala is at its best if you try to keep it purely functional. And that's when I find the code so much easier to comprehend because you're not having to deal with side effects. Anything happening outside of the chunk of code you're reading right now, quite often with object-oriented programming, there's things going on in the background which might not even see happening, and you won't see the effects for quite often. Whereas in a purely functional space, anything going into a function and is completely deterministically will give the same output, same input, the same output. And that's far easier to comprehend, obviously. And yeah, I was completely amazed moving to Scala that suddenly programming became enjoyable. Like programming at work could be enjoyable, I realized for the first time. And yeah, I really kind of stepped up my career a lot, I feel like, thanks to meeting Scala and getting to opening up this whole new world to me. And then even more recently, I felt like Zio goes one step further by encoding into the types, into the environment type, the side effects that are necessary for any production ready code. Side effects are just a natural part of programs interacting with the real world, and Zio encoding those side effects and again makes it one step even further easier to comprehend. And then with purely functional code that you can just compose everything together so beautifully, so perfectly together, and you could be confident just by reading through the types, you can be confident what the output's going to be. And it also makes it far easier to test. With purely functional code, it's deterministic, so you can write a suite of tests and it will run the same time every time. You won't have flaky tests, hopefully, if all goes well. And yeah, so this again boosts up something I'm a big fan of: test-driven development. By writing your test suite first, you can then design the source code to achieve those tests and be confident that your code acts and operates as expected. So yeah, so moving to the functional programming paradigm, and even now, it is somewhat of a high ceiling. There's a lot to learn. There's still some techniques. I still find myself sometimes falling back on old object-oriented programming patterns and techniques occasionally, and I may have to refactor things. And I'm still trying to change that mindset because, again, object-oriented programming does make a lot of sense in many ways, just encapsulating in tiny boxes bundles of functionality. But I've been moving more to the FP way of doing things and thinking more of stuff as modules. Modules, in many ways, modules of functionality across different domains. And again, also with domain-driven design in the same way. So those kind of meeting of different paradigms together. So yeah, that's everything for me, and I'm very happy here at Hivemind Technologies to meet other people passionate about proper, purely functional code and follow TDD and DDD practices. So yeah, that's everything for me. Thank you for listening.